Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Green Arrow FPL podcast and Fantasy Football Hub as we look ahead to double game week 32. My name is Fergie, and I'm here with the brilliant Rich Clarke. Rich, how are you? And what colour was your arrow in game week 31?
Good afternoon, Fergie. Good afternoon, everyone. Massive green for a change.
About time, mate. We haven't said that.
Best game week rank of the season for me. It hasn't been many in the top million or in the top 200,000, but it was last week, mainly thanks to Jacob Murphy and Tino Livramento.
What an opening goal that was for you, mate. In what was it, the third minute of the game, was it?
I know, fantastic start. So that was lovely. I think the whole community was in jeopardy over Isak starting or not all day. There were quite a few fake leaks on it and all that sort of stuff. And in the end, it didn't really matter, did it? Isak did very little, but the supporting cast came through with the points. So that really made a big difference for me. It was a bit of a roller coaster start. I actually wasn't paying attention on Saturday morning. I was out having a life somewhere.
Really?
Didn't catch the Saka leak, which I think very few people did. Came out about 2 minutes to 11. Yeah. So played Saka, who was quite surprisingly benched against Everton. So the weekend didn't get off to a great start, but then also managed to bench Morgan Rogers again. Every time I bench him, he scores points. Quite an incredible season, isn't he? He's scored again in the Champions League and just keeps on producing the numbers. Fantastic player, but I wasn't the only one who benched points this week, and I'm well aware of it. So if you are in the chat and you bench Murphy or you benched another hauler, commiserations. We are all in the same boat, carrying these strong squads at the moment, aren't we? So but good week, 65, and I don't know what the gap is between us, but it's not many points now, is it, mate? Five to 7 points.
But I feel I do have an ace up my sleeve. I'll touch on that now. But right. You're kind of absolutely right in terms of the bench. That's the thing when you wildcard, and you wildcard with a bench with a few weeks in mind is we're all going to next week now. I know we're going to chat quite a lot around triple captain versus bench boost this week, but for those who don't bench boost this week, I mean, it's going to be hard take again, right? There's going to be points on the benches this week. It's going to be really, really tough if you don't bench boost. And it'd be sods all right if you played your bench boost. They'd probably score naff all. So, but we'll touch on that more. I benched Morgan Rogers as well, so I was sort of secretly hoping, probably the same as you actually, for Isak to not play. Even though my voice was on Salah, because I was getting Rodgers off the bench, I would have liked that. And definitely
11
benefits.
More points, yeah.
But 59 points, Jacob Murphy, and I mean, I was really surprised actually, because I feel last week he was quite heavily talked about in lots of sort of content and quite heavily owned, I think, amongst engaged managers. But I did get quite a big old rank leap when he scored. I think it was even his first goal, like a 10% rank leap, and his second goal just took me to the moon. So I didn't get as many as you. I scored 59 because you've got Livramento, I've got Pope, which I think is probably the only real sort of difference, or the difference in terms of our scores anyway. But I do think my ace up my sleeve this week, Rich, because I think our difference in points is now maybe 7 or something. It's not a lot.
Not much, is it?
But I do have Cole Palmer this week, home to Ipswich against your Saka, which was one of the key differences in our wild cards. So that's going to be an interesting week, because your recommended transfer last week was Saka to Palmer, wasn't it? So it's going to be interesting. Welcome everyone in the chat. Looks like most in the chat had a good week. D is in. He says, best FF pod out there. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, D. Daryl Toast is in. He said 74 points helped me halve my rank. Well played, Daryl. Andy 9 is in. David is in. I'm 9074. Says Mark leaving Black Box is this week's news. Absolutely. We wish Mark the very, very best in his new role. Brian is in. Chris Woodstock is in. David M. Ross Johnson. FPL Freddy got 72 points and a 30k game week rank. Dave Hannigan is in. James Thompson, he says, is it time to go rogue if you're chasing triple captain Mateta or Murphy? We'll touch on that next. And Bale Zaru is here as well. Thank you so much, everyone. for joining us. So yeah, massive greens for us. About time, mate. And we did say, didn't we? About this time of the season now. I know it feels like everyone, the world and his wife, are kind of using the same chip strategy we are, but they're not, right? There's obviously variations of the strategy, and a lot have used their chips already, and a lot are not quite set up, and things as well. So, but Murphy was the hero this week. That is for sure. So, thank you so much, Jacob. We really, really appreciate it. Lay of the land, Rich. Now then, it hasn't changed. I know Ben has maybe kind of slightly tweaked his weightings on the doubles.
I think it's not showing on the graphic, but there's been a few numbers and percentage guesses come out around these fixtures. I made a note of them. So there's some odds on these 36. I think the City and Bournemouth is around a 46% chance. Villa and Tottenham is around a 24 to 26% chance, and the Forest West Ham one is around a 15% chance. So something's gonna happen that week. It'd be very unfortunate. I mean, it could be zero, no doubles, but I think that's very unlikely. I think Tottenham going through in the Europa would help probabilities. I think they play tonight, and so I think if you're just looking for some odds, then probably City are favourites to win their cup semi against Forest, and Villa slight favourites given their form against Palace, but it could go the other way. And so if you've got a chip left after the upcoming frenzy, it might not be the worst thing to do to save it until that week. But for now, we're right in the middle of the certainty, and it's a double game week this week, and it's a double game week next week.
Double game week fever for 2 weeks, Rich. Come on, baby.
That's going to be our focus, very much so, for the next 2 pods.
Indeed. So, yeah, double this week for Palace Newcastle, double next week for Palace, City, Villa and Arsenal. Blank the week after in 34, as we all know, for Palace, City, Villa and Arsenal. And the kind of template chip strategy feels like, Rich, if you haven't used your triple captain, it's probably this week, though there is argument for bench boost, which we'll touch on next. Vice versa in 33, either bench boost or triple captain, unless you're on assistant manager, which a lot of managers are on. Free hit if you've got it left in 34, likely. The kind of wild card in 30 or 31 to set it up for this period. Also largely set everyone up, who's got it left for a free hit in 34, and then just kind of see how it tails off. But beginning to wonder, Rich, I think last week, I haven't got the spaffometer up because obviously we didn't specifically play a chip this week. We'll definitely have it up next week. Maybe that wild card wasn't as bad as we thought. And we did say, didn't we, that you have to let a wild card time to sort of breathe and mature, don't you? And it kind of matured because Murphy was a wild card pick for one amongst others.
Absolutely. I think certainly having, because our teams are fairly templatey, and I won't lie about that. They do represent the community team, I think. So it's certainly, I certainly feel better about the timing of the wild card and the makeup of the wild card right now. If we have 2 more good weeks, i.e. the triple captain hits and the bench boost hits, I think we can upgrade that to smashed it, hopefully, by game week 34. So let's hope so. We could do with some good weeks, mate. We need more than one.
We do,
and I'm optimistic going into this week. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Let us know in the chat how this period of the season is going, and how your season is going in general. Really, it would be great to know. A really topical question in the chat. Well, a comment around the question off Bales Aru. He said, "I've wildcarded to bench boost this week, but I own Timber and Rodgers, which I wouldn't describe as optimal." So yeah, interesting. And we've got just a graphic up now. Probably the outstanding triple captain option, though there is a debate about it, is probably Isak this week. 2 home games, man on form. I think the manager came out on Monday night after the game, didn't he, and said that we'll be managing his minutes, but we won't be managing them anymore. It was like almost, when you look for all these narratives and confirmation bias and perfect storm for everything, it feels like it's going on Isaac this week, even though he'll probably, with all that said, what happens is he probably blanks in both now. But bench boost has been mooted. We know Ben Crellin, Wildcard in 30, and publicly stated, on his X account that he is going, or he did it to bench boost in 32. My general feel, Rich, is that and we say this all the time, don't we? Around, you've got to let the weeks play out, and when you get to the point, you'll have so much more information. And it feels to me like the bench boost of 32 is team dependent, obviously, but it's got away from me. Even last week, I was saying I'm really tempted to bench boost in 32. But with Gabriel, who I could use a transfer for, right, obviously, and I would to anyone, right? But with 2 Villa players, Konza, I believe Konza was rested last week. Rodgers has played every game. I'm all of a sudden not that confident. And Raya in goal, who will obviously play, but he's only playing a single, as the others only have singles. All of a sudden, I'm not feeling as excited as I was. And with those stars aligning for Isak, like I touched on earlier, it feels like, for me anyway, Isak triple captain this week, Ben Zeus next week is definitely the way I'm going. What's your sentiment at the moment?
I think so. I mean, you can, when you look at a team either for a rival or a friend or someone in your mini league, you could kind of tell it. You could tell which game week someone is going to bench boost in, because they will have a Forest defender as opposed to a Villa defender on their bench, because they have a more favourable game in game week 32 and also a game in game week 34 if you don't have a free hit left. So they'll have a Forest defender in there as opposed to Villa, who have a double in 33. So where you see benches that have Villa players on them, they are on a theoretical game week 33 bench boost strategy in all likelihood. So I think it's risky this week. Just my opinion. I think I thought the Champions League games were both fantastic games. Two of them after some fairly drab Premier League games.
It was dreadful on the weekend, wasn't it? I had a massive rant on Monday night in the pod. I do a pod on a Monday night, and I was just so angry at the lack of effort and creativity, quality. It was just dreadful, wasn't it? There's only really teams like Villa who are really pushing it at the moment. Everyone else, it was dreadful. That Manchester derby, goodness me.
Exactly. And then so to see, got to give a shout out to Declan Rice. I've never seen any player, not that I can see, a player score 2 free kicks within 12 minutes of each other of that quality in any game. Normally you see one spectacular
free kick. They were worldies, weren't they, both of them?
And from the same guy to do twice. I mean, hats off to him. What an absolutely fantastic performance from him and the team. Superb. And so that's kind of the knock-on effect of that is, I wouldn't like to second guess the Arsenal team this weekend, would you? It could make 11 changes.
Yeah.
It could completely rest everybody in order to get through. Although you could argue that they're kind of comfortable in that tie.
Yeah.
I know that Madrid could get back into it, but I don't know. There's going to be 6 or 7 changes in that team, I would think, going forward. And then the Villa, the similar sort of thing. They're playing Southampton, which is a bit of a gimme anyway. So I think we'll see 6 or 7 changes in the Villa team. But which 6 or 7, I don't know. Does Rodgers get his first rest of the season? I think that's just come out of the community. I'm not sure any football professional or Unai Emery has said he's going to rest Rodgers. Rodgers is probably one of the fittest players and most talismanic Villa players now. That's just Twitter speak.
It's the same as Liverpool, mate. Remember Liverpool, Southampton the other week, where everyone was saying they're going to make 11 changes, and they played their strongest team. And I think Salah scored the 2 penalties that day, didn't he? Which is obviously fortunate for Salah owners. But as you say, it's just people spinning narratives they want. We have no idea. We have no idea. Would you honestly be surprised if they put a strong side up? Bear in mind, both of these teams, Arsenal and Villa, have both got something to play for still, haven't they?
They have, and it's now due to that Arsenal win. We are now guaranteed a 5th team in the Champions League next season. So you're talking about 6 of the top 7 fighting for 4 spots. So 2 teams are going to miss out on Champions League. Arsenal, probably favourites to get one of those spots as they've got a bit of a gap, but they're still going to be taking the league seriously.
Absolutely.
And still can't afford a loss, which they could, if they put too weak a team out, could lose to Brentford. So I don't know. It's not ideal for bench boosting, getting back to the question. It's not ideal. There's too much speculation over those 2 lineups, and a lot of people have got 4 or 5 players from those teams in their 15s. So I don't know. I would think about deferring the bench boost until 36 if I was on that strategy.
Wow, interesting. I've got to say I agree. Especially if you've held on to Gabriel and we're planning a transfer this week. I just, my recommended transfer this week for a defender, I think, was, most of us are going to have triple up on Newcastle and Palace now anyway. It was like a Chelsea defender or so, and you're just like, home to Ipswich. Would you really be surprised if Delap scored and Colwell got a 1 or 2 pointer or something? You just wouldn't be surprised, would you? There's just it doesn't feel like massive upside, whereas there could potentially be on 33, obviously, because you've got more fixtures, and on 36, because you would feel, obviously, that they would have a better chance of playing in both games rather than what they have this week. So interesting. Just to touch a bit more, Rich, on the triple captain. I mean, I've got to be honest. I'm just all over Isak. I just love what I see with him. Recent form, Mateta has scored. So Mateta scored 2 in his last 3. Stats are decent. Isak's underlying stats are slightly better. Fixture-wise, Isak home twice, home to United, home to Palace. Mateta away to Newcastle, away to Man City. I wouldn't be surprised to see sort of all of, they've all obviously got chance of scoring in all those games. Prediction wise on Fantasy Football Hub, Isak comes out on top. Is there any argument to go with Mateta or anyone else? Interested in your thoughts.
I guess ownership of Mateta is way lower. So if you do get a variance swing in your favour and it comes off and you're way down the rankings like we are, it might be more sensible to try a triple captain on Mateta, because you'll be in a minority, and if you win that battle, you'll fly up the rankings while everybody else goes backwards. So,
or Murphy maybe, or someone along those lines.
If you think he could do the same this week as last week with 2 games, 2 bites at the cherry, then Murphy could be a pick. But I think the ownership is so high on Isak and his overall expected points over 2 home games. Newcastle are good at home. I think it's a bit dangerous to go against it, personally.
Yeah.
I think the triple captain in itself, if you still got it, is enough of a differential to lift you up. And you could be talking, I mean, I'd be happy with, say, 10 to 15 points over the 2 games.
I think a goal.
Anything else?
I'd like a goal in each
maybe.
Game.
Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah, exactly. A goal and some bonus in each game would be nice. So upper teens maybe of points. I don't think we're going to see the Salah 28 or 27 that we saw in Gameweek 24. But if you can get somewhere between 15 and 20 points, then you've got to be happy with that as an uplift on a triple captain. So I'm pretty happy with these, but it is an opportunity to differentiate. And if you are, maybe just chasing down a rival and want to go different, then why not?
Yeah, really, really good shout in the chat from Animations. He says, I think Asensio could be a great option this week. I agree. Sort of, he tends to play the alternative games. And when he comes on, he's just so dangerous, isn't he? And were they their way to Southampton? Like, if everyone thinks Rodgers, maybe Rashford, maybe Watkins, maybe, all these players are going to get a rest, all of a sudden Asensio comes into it. Players like Ramsey.
Marlon is another one.
Marlon, yeah. These are all really good options. This is it. Villa got so many options, haven't they? It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I think objectively, it's probably fair to say, I think most are agreed that Isak is the best option. I think his EO will probably be sort of well over 200% above, against for engaged managers. But as you say, a lot of people have used the chip already. Some people will be bench boosting as well. So maybe 220%. So if he does bang, you can expect a bit of a green, which would be nice. Interesting stuff. Thanks for everyone. Really good stuff going on in the chat. Yeah, really, really good stuff. We touched on rotation, and I've got a list of 5 players, and you could put 10 or 15 on this who we maybe think could be effective. So I put Konza, Rashford, Saka, Watkins, and Odegaard in as being rotated. But we just touched on all those, haven't we? And it's back to do with the bench boost, but 2 transfers in this week and stuff. It feels to me like a week again that if you wildcarded in 30-31, you probably maybe shouldn't be looking to use a transfer this week unless you're bench boosting and you've got Gabriel or you really have got a rotation risk. Do you expect Saka to play on the weekend?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not even sure and I'd like to see what the chat thinks about this. Is, I've got to decide really to play one of Saka or Rodgers, both of whom could be on the bench, for this weekend. I think they'll both at least make the
Oh yeah, I
bench,
think so.
but
Yeah, definitely.
but it's a tough choice, right? I say Saka probably has the highest ceiling if he starts and is arguably the better player, but Rodgers is on form and he's playing Southampton, so. I'll keep checking my messages because we messaged Adam Hopcroft and just before the show to say what does he think because he's
Yeah,
a Villa expert on Rodgers' likelihood of a start. But yeah, it's a toughie. I getting back to Saka, he did limp off, but he limps off in 70% of his
he always
games.
limps off.
Arteta said it was just a kick. He's fine, but he's got a ready-made replacement, Nwaneri,
Is
who
it?
didn't even get on against Madrid, and so he could quite easily play him against Brentford or start with Nwaneri. So I think Saka will. I think Saka will be on the bench. Is my honest opinion.
I
It's
think I
just
think I
whether
go
or
for
not I'd
Rodgers, mate.
start him.
I think I'll be starting Rodgers.
Yeah,
I think one, he's got a better chance anyway,
yeah.
and two, he's just on form, and what a fixture as well. The Chelsea team is out. Obviously, Palmer was benched on the weekend. Let's just have a quick look, see if we can got the Chelsea team quickly. Okay. Chelsea, Jorgensen, Tosin, Badiashile, Nkunku, Sancho, Palmer. Palmer plays this evening. Dewsbury Hall, James Gusto, George, and Akiam Pong. Quite a few rested actually, but Palmer is back in the team for their match away to Legia Warsaw. Three
Okay, let's
massive
hope he
games
gets
on.
90 and is exhausted by the end.
Let's hope he gets a hat trick.
Yeah,
Pre-16s, taking off in the 60th, walking off,
yeah,
smiling and dancing like this. That would be nice. Yeah, I think out of your dilemma there, mate, I think I'd definitely go in Rodgers personally.
yeah.
I think the fixture's
Thanks
better
for
as
that.
well, to be honest.
Yeah,
Regardless and
yeah,
the form. So enough of talking about people who are not going to make it on the weekend. Let's have a look for some transfer options in for this week. Obviously, we've got the
yeah.
big guns, right? We know about Isak, we know about Mateta, we know about all these sorts of players. But you've picked out 5 players. A couple are popular already. We just want to talk through
Yeah,
these
sure.
options,
I mean,
Rich.
obviously, yeah. I think we're assuming here that most engaged managers have readied their teams with Palace and Newcastle assets already for the double. But if you do have a slot spare for a Newcastle player, then you could do a lot worse than put Jacob Murphy in, even though he scored big points last week. He's very confident. He's probably playing his best football of his career right now.
Absolutely.
There's no real sign of Anthony Gordon returning, although he's more likely to take Barnes's place if he comes back into the team. But I don't think he'll come back in because Barnes is playing well. So no risk of not starting. I think at the weekend for Murphy, and very cheap, great enabler at 5.1 million. So he
Incredible.
gets the foreground spot there and needs no other description. Livramento obviously did the business last week. He had a great game
Yeah.
against Leicester, really tearing forward. So very happy to have him in the team. And they would be my two sort of lower owned Newcastle picks. I think Livramento is pretty low owned actually across the game compared to other picks. So again, ownership is in his favour. If you want a Palace asset, a lot of people went with the Munoz, Sarr, and Mateta picks. So if you want a little bit of a differential, Eze is still exactly that, and he was the one who got the 2 assists last week. I wouldn't sideways move Sarr to Eze. I think that's a waste of a transfer. But if you do have the spot,
Yeah.
I would go for Eze over Sarr now if you have the money. And then on the other side, if you want an Arsenal asset that isn't Saliba, and Saliba is rocketing in price and is also just as much of a risk of a rest this week as any of the other team because he's so essential for Madrid, then Kiwior is a nice pick at 4.8 million. He did really well against Real Madrid. I couldn't believe how well he played during the match. And he's a nice alternative to throw in there, particularly if you're looking to maybe make 2 moves next week and upgrade a player elsewhere and you need the money. So he comes in at 4.8 million.
Crazy
And
price.
also around 4.8, although they might have gone up a bit now, is Milenkovic of Forest. So I put one in here for the bench boosters, for people who are bench boosting this week, I think, and also maybe people who don't have the free hit and are looking to navigate through game week 34. Forest have good fixtures in both 32 and 34. And so and even indeed for the rest of the season, they could double in 36, but they have a nice run in. They're going for a Champions League spot, and Milenkovic is probably the most attacking threat defender out there. So he makes sense again as a potential Gabriel replacement or someone to bring in here. So what do you think of that lot? I could have had Diaz in here from City. He's someone I'm looking at for next week, but he'll probably be on next week's picks because I don't really want to sell
of course
Gabriel and then have my new guy get injured before the double game week.
Well, the first thing I've observed, Rich, is Kiwior and Milenkovic look like twin brothers. I can't believe how similar they look. That's absolutely insane. For anyone who's not looking on YouTube, have a look at Kiwior and Milenkovic. They are twins. They got
the same barber.
Yeah, they are insane. They're all solid, Rich. It's obviously hard to pick this week because it's a very template time at the moment, and we're moving from game week to game week using the chips. I think Marino for Arsenal is potentially an alternative to Saka. I was looking at Marino's minutes. I think in the last 6 or 7 games, he's played 90 every single game. He looks to be the sort of man there now. He's nailed his time. So again, potentially not for this week, but looking at next week,
I think again you're almost right in the picks for next week, because I think a lot of people maybe will look to move Newcastle assets on in game week 33, particularly if they've stacked 2 or 3 transfers for the week, and so Murphy to Marino is going to be a popular move in game week 33 just to play the doubles. However, this week he scored against Real Madrid. He's clearly from the Spanish league and is not in awe of playing at the Bernabeu. I fully expect him to start and play up front in the return leg. So I just think he's at risk of a bit of a rotation with Trossard this week, which is why he didn't make the picks for me. I think Trossard will probably start against Brentford, and Marino might either be benched or moved back into the midfield spots.
What do you think of Declan Rice? Chana's just put in
as a fantasy asset.
Well, he's got this newfound free kick sensation from nowhere.
He's turned into Roberto Carlos.
Yes.
I mean, he's just unbelievable. That have you seen that picture they took of the ball as it goes into the top bin? It's like literally in the top corner.
Unbelievable.
And when it when he said I was actually watching it with a mate who's an Arsenal fan, and in his pavilion outside, and we started doing. You remember that famous bit of commentary about the Gaza goal in the 1990s when
1991?
It's Barry Davies goes, he's not going to have a go from here.
Yeah, that's
he
right.
is, and then Gascoigne scored. And I did an impression of that comment, and then he did the second goal, and we just went absolutely crazy. That
was against Arsenal, wasn't it? In the 1991 FA Cup semi-final. It's kind of similar. Right. I don't know if you remember a few years ago when Man City, they were struggling to break down Leicester to win the league, and Vincent Kompany picked it up 30 yards out, and he was shaping up to shoot, and Aguero was saying, "No, don't shoot," and he popped it in the top corner. It had similar sort of vibes, didn't it? So
absolutely. No, fantastic. I mean, look, Rice is clearly full of confidence. I can see him taking some free kicks for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So again, if you're looking for a differential, he could well be a good bet, but he's not known for his goal scoring, is he?
He's not, mate. But the whole thing with fantasy is getting ahead of the curve, getting in first. Discover with Sims says, what about Mitoma? He's been dangerous and having no free hit. I've got him instead of Foden. He's been dangerous and unlucky not to return. And Brian says Aleba or Minter as well.
Do you think Foden is a sell for people who went there on Wildcard?
I suppose it depends who you're going to this week. I mean, just for example, if you haven't got Murphy or you've got a spot for Eze or Sarr, I definitely would. I think if you can maybe get through this week, see what happens with the City team. Maybe De Bruyne might get injured or something, or he'll open up for Foden, or as you say, because of the funds that he's going to have, he could move on to Saka for $1 million more. So I think if you haven't got one of the obvious picks, I'd probably hold this week, but yeah, sell if you haven't. A quick look at predicted points for the next few game weeks then. Isak is top, 33, Salah 32.2, Mateta then down on 26, Palmer 25, Sarr 24, Gordon and Barnes, obviously when I think if Gordon is fit, you'd probably expect him to play. But I was having a look earlier. He didn't train before Monday at all. Apparently, he was nowhere near. So I'd be very surprised if he's he's fit for the weekend. But obviously, they do have 2 fixtures next week. Barnes is up there as well at 5.9. Cunha suddenly leaps up back in the menu, fit this week. I think he plays. He's home to Spurs this week. Can see him scoring, mate.
I can see him. I can see him featuring again before the end of the season. He's been in and out of my team 3 times, I think. So
I think Cunha is going to have a bit of a say, mate. Honestly, he's just that good, isn't he? Pre ban.
I don't know if you caught it, but the above average boys did another bonus pod last night about the impact of the bonus points, and then they were talking about Cunha, and he's literally just the best fantasy asset for attracting bonus because he gets fouled a lot and he takes loads of shots, and so therefore he's just the perfect. If he scores a goal, it'll be a 9-point goal. So it's fantastic.
I'm sure Wolves have got a pretty good fixture.
Yeah, they've got a decent
They're home to Leicester in. Well, we'll all be free hitting him in 34, mate. That's for sure. Yeah. Can he be a captaincy option in 34? Maybe be interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I like Cunha, and clearly they're safe now, almost safe, and the manager will be on a high. So I think I like Cunha for the run-in, just slightly off template, but for the next couple of weeks, it's all about doublers, isn't it?
I think it is. It's all about Palace, Newcastle. Eze is in there. Watkins, obviously, like we touched on earlier, it's difficult to look at. At the minutes of Villa.
That's not ideal. That Isak to Watkins move now, is it? That people were eyeing.
Well, absolutely not.
Rashford is a real fly in the ointment, isn't it? It's like who's gonna? Can you see Watkins starting both games in the double?
No. I don't think he's fit anyway. I don't think he's fit. I think Watkins starts on the weekend, and there's an argument, right? Is Rashford actually now the number one informed pick of that number 9? Was it 3 goals in 2 before? I think he was poor this week in midweek, but it's not. It's certainly a coin toss, right? It's not a slam dunk that Watkins is the number 1 now. So, and they've just got so many options. This is the thing, is they can afford to. And if Villa get through, which I know is unlikely now, again, I still think we'll see so much rotation. They've got the FA Cup as well. Don't forget, they're fighting for Champions League spot. They've got 5 or 6 top class players who they want to give a lot of minutes to. So I think I don't think Watkins is the slam dunk option he was. Marmo, Odegaard and Puemo, and then we go down the list. But yeah, at the moment, mate, it's all about those Palace, Newcastle with a sprinkling. I'm quite excited actually to own Salah and Palmer this week. They both got really good home games. Hope Palmer turns up. Have a quick look at assistant manager. Obviously.
It's not all about our team.
It's not all about our team.
Some people have still got an assistant manager.
And some people are active. Paul McNulty, actually, who I podded on a Monday night, is on assistant manager, and he went with Thomas Frank, who got 10 points for the draw with Chelsea, which is obviously a nice start. How is top of predicted points this week? 13.1 at 1.5 million. Glasner is just behind at 11.8. And next week, Arteta is actually top. Interestingly, mate, Arteta comes out, if you combine the 2 weeks together, Arteta comes out top because over the 3 games, which you wouldn't have probably maybe thought, because it's all been about to go with how or Arteta. But Arteta does come out top over the 3 games, so there is an argument to go with Arteta this week and save a transfer. You could go Howe this week, Glasner next week, Glasner, save a transfer, double. But what's your thoughts at the moment on which way you go?
I just think, from my experience of playing the assistant manager, it's all about the emotional ride. It's the ride of the table bonus. If it's not obvious that that's the way to go, I think Palace have at least 2, possibly 3 table bonus opportunities across those 4 games.
Yeah, you're right.
So I just think you don't hokey cokey it. You put Glasner in for the double, and you sit back and hope that they win one of those games, and you get 20 points, and that's all you need. Palace can have a very good away record, so I'm not worried about the away games, and they can beat anybody on the day. They're in form, so I reckon there's one, maybe two wins across those four games. So I think you go for table bonus and you do it on Glasner. I would be doing it without hesitation, and he's only 0.8 million as well. I think Arteta and Howe are much more expensive, so you have to have those funds available and maybe making unnecessary transfers to make that money. So I would go Glasner without hesitation. I don't know what you would do, but
I think so. You can obviously argue about the potential opportunity cost of going without a third Palace player, of which there are some fantastic options, but I do agree with you. Again, it all kind of lines up really with the Isak, the triple captain. Remember all those factors which lined up the perfect storm for Isak. I think it was with Glasner as well. They've got the table bonus. They're fantastic away from home. I think that goal they conceded away at Southampton midweek was the first away goal they've conceded in like 6 games, or something ridiculous like that. So even though they are tough games, as you say, they've only got to win one, max 2 of those 4 for it to come off. Yeah, you're saving a transfer fine. Going 32 to 33.
Even a draw in those games gets you 10.
Exactly. No, I think
so that's great. I mean, 10 points, and you've got 4 goes. If you have 4 draws, that's 40 points. I mean, it's
40 points of 4 draws.
You don't even have to win a game. I mean, if you win all 4 of them, and you could have 70, 80 points there for one move. So I just think Glasner, definitely.
Glasner all the way. Isak triple captain all the way. Yep, agree, mate. Not much of a conversation. Though if you are chasing, looking to be different, but just check out Arteta in potentially, as one who.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're I've seen some of the well-known content creators playing it nice and safe and putting Eddie Howe in there. They have got 2 home fixtures. You could argue that you're just going to not risking so much the 1 pointer. You're going to get 1 win out of those 2 home games in all likelihood for Newcastle. So if you're up the top of the rankings, then you can understand the logic in going for Eddie Howe for a week and then moving it on. But it all depends on the health of your team. So I'd be doing Glasner.
Let's have a look at the Hub AI Gameweek 32 wildcard team. Not that we expect many people to be wildcarding this week, but it's always interesting to show what the most sort of optimal team we're looking at is at the moment. Henderson in goal with Flecken as the backup keeper, and then it goes Byrne, Saliba, Gvardiol, Milenkovic, and Timber. Very template. Sarr, Murphy, Salah, Palmer, and Rodgers. Very template. Isak, Mateta, and Marmoush. So it is very so those who wildcard 30-31, again, we can't thank Ben Krelid enough, right? Because those points we got last week, Rich, were basically based off Ben's predictions almost, weren't they? That's who we wildcarded in 30. So this team represents that still. So
it's not largely different from our wild cards, is it? Really, it's almost identical to what we have. So it's quite affirming 2 weeks on. I mean, I like it. A couple of comments. I would definitely have Livramento over Byrne for the extra 0.1. Yeah. I would have a doubling keeper for 33. In there, I know Henderson is in there, but I probably wouldn't do Flecken unless the chip strategy has been plugged into this to navigate Gameweek 34. But I'd have another doubling keeper because I'd probably play to a bench boost in 33. Yeah. But again, it's just being assumptive that a bench boost is still available. Yeah. And I'd probably have a third City asset like Ederson or Diaz, in that keeper spot or in that defender spot. Yeah. And the other thing is, if the Palmer thing, it depends. I know he's got a good fixture, but I don't know if I'd wildcard him in for the rest of the season because you're just booking in a transfer to get rid of him, aren't you? Afterwards, I think. What do you think of that? Would you have Palmer on a wild card against Ipswich? I suppose you.
They do have Everton. Well, they have Fulham away and Everton at home as well in 33 devotes. They're not bad fixtures. Yeah. They're all right. So I still.
It's probably because of Saka's doubt for the weekend.
This is it. His minutes, Saka's minutes at the moment are only down to like 40, 45 predicted minutes. So he's not even in the reckoning really for these next 3 games. Obviously, Saka blanks at 34 as well. So there's no chip strategy plugged into this. This is just like the overarching team, which would
generic
give you
team,
a generic team. But no, I'm not sure with Palmer. Like there's very few players in the game, as we know, and you know better than most, Rich, as a Chelsea fan. Palmer goes off. He's just. Remember, did he score 4 goals in game week 7? Was it
in a half?
I mean, you know, there's not many players in the league can do that, and it hasn't happened yet. It's obvious, right? And you know, it probably won't happen. But when you're looking for, you know, for chasing the upside, looking at opportunity, I do feel like I'm really happy that I went with Palmer over Saka on Wildcard, and that's not to sort of, you know, rub it in your face, Rich, obviously, because I think we all expected Saka to be a bit fitter to play more minutes now. But I did also factor in that the Saka had Real Madrid, you know, and stuff, which obviously, you know, we've been resting for. But with a feeling that the Palmer could be a bit of a difference this week if he goes off, but he'd probably get a 1-pointer again. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's obviously that'll be another one of those games where I'll probably have to go out if it's on the television.
As a Chelsea fan as well, mate. That's
exactly.
the worst.
I don't think I've seen them since November.
I used to have it with Harry Kane all the time. Whenever I didn't own Kane or Son, and they'd score a hat trick, and I'd be like, "Yay!" knowing that, you know, Son hat trick, great, and just my rank like an absolute battering. But
exactly, that's my hide behind the sofa game, that Ipswich game. So look, it's a good team, and it's still not too late to wildcard if you're holding on to it and you're a bit hesitant. I think you might have a different chip strategy. You might need to delay AM to the end of the season, or delay the bench boost or triple captain to 36, but you can still get it done. So if you haven't done it yet, I would think about doing it.
Yep, good stuff. Best captain this week, we touched on this already. Top of predicted points is Isak, 13.6 on the polls. Rich, I don't know if you have looked. If you haven't looked, do you want to have a guess at the Isak's percent in terms of votes?
How many votes were there?
They were 100 odd votes.
Oh God, 75 plus.
87%.
Oh yeah.
Went for Isak. Only 4% went for Murphy and Salah, and less than that went for Mateta. It's all over Isak.
All Isak, yeah. So we're going to be talking about 220, 230%. Effective ownership.
I think so, mate. I think so. But like I say, still, it's good for us because, you know, there'll be some who've used their triple captain, there'll be some using assistant manager, and there will be some using bench boosts. So it's not all going to be like it kind of generally is. Everyone's on the one strategy, aren't they? There's lots of different strategies. Some people have used it already. Some people may go for a Murphy, you know, because Isak blanked. So, you know what? Some people like to go last week's points.
If in midweek, you know, Isak pummels that Glasner assistant manager into the dirt with a 6-0 win or something, you know, there'll be big variance, or vice versa, right?
You know, that's the thing we're seeing this season, isn't it? Is because of the variation chip strategies, it's almost double whammy in terms of what happens, because the assistant managers, they're not going to get the triple captain points from Isak, they're going to get the extra Glasner point, and then vice versa, right? So that's
a big game. That's a big game on Wednesday for the battle of the strategies.
I remember there was a goal on there in something like game week 26, which meant that I can't remember, like Arsenal didn't win or something, but it also meant that someone else got bonus or whatever it was, and it was just it was like a 20-point swing off one goal or something crazy that. Mad. Yeah, Isak, Isak, Mateta, or Murphy, maybe if you're going for a bit of a differential. But yeah, Isak's always going to be pretty high. Brian says, peak FPL, Gordon comes back and gets a hattie. That would just be about peak FPL.
As long as Isak gets the assists, I don't mind that.
Fergie is a punt for double game week 32. A bit of a boring one this week. It's quite hard, obviously, because, you know, it's Newcastle and Palace, right? They're the teams we're focusing on. We all know who the best players are from them. We've all, you know, there's, Isak and Murphy. If Gordon was fit, maybe Gordon. Livramento, maybe. For Palace, we know it's Mateta or Sarah. You know, Eze, you mentioned, Rich, is a differential. Potentially maybe Munoz. There's only one player really we haven't talked about who could be a decent option next week, who will be low owned, and that is Harvey Barnes. So this is obviously assuming that Gordon isn't fit, but Barnes is playing well, and he's scoring goals. obviously wait till the presser tomorrow. If it's intimated that Gordon's just not fit, he hasn't trained. Howe is sometimes quite open that they haven't trained potentially, even though he'll probably be the old. We'll have to wait and see or whatever else. But
maybe he's won a trophy. Maybe he'll just start telling the truth.
He was quite open around Isak's minutes. We're not going to manage his minutes anymore. He's never as kind of as open in that. And with Gordon, he hasn't trained and all this stuff. James Thompson has sent Punt, Marlon. I like that. I actually think Asensio is. Asensio's all right as well, even though they've only got the one game. I find it hard to go for a one gamer. I think Asensio would be my one game punt, but I think overall, if you're looking for some decent minutes over 2 games, I think Barnes might start them both. I think he'd be brought off early, 65, 70 minutes. But if he gets 140 minutes, I think Barnes, he could do well. Only if looking for a differential, and he's nowhere near the stock of Isak, Murphy, Eze, etc. So, but Asensio,
good
I like that earlier. Yeah. Rich, we've got your team on screen with a spanking 95% game week rating. Do you want to run us through your team?
No likely changes for me this week. Raya in goal against Brentford, and then Livramento at the back with Gvardiol at home to Palace, and Munoz with the double game week. So nice defence. Defence did really well for me last week. So 28 points, I think, in the defence. Midfield, another chance for Sarr after 2 blanks. Hopefully things will swing his way. Murphy, the hero of last week. Salah with a decent home game against West Ham, although not really in the captaincy conversation this week. And then I've got in this draft, I've gone with Rodgers over Saka, mainly due to the flag on Saka that remains. Isak, Mateta, Marmoush. This doesn't show triple captain, but it does have a reminder in the My Team photograph to put your play your. Oh, it says. Oh, what did you do? Remember to play your bench boost this week.
That's because I
didn't tell it to do.
No, that. I think I was messing around with your. I was looking to. Well, I'll show you now. But if you were playing your bench boost this week, it gives you your transfer to play. So I was messing around with your team. I said bench boost 32, so that's the reason why.
Okay, all right. No, I will be triple captaining this week. And actually, just as a tip to people, triple captain is one of those chips in the real FPL game that's very easy to mess up.
Absolutely.
And realise that you didn't activate the chip. You still have to go in and activate it. And sorry if you know this already, but the little disc by your captain will be white background instead of black background, and that indicates that the chip is active.
Press save
it's not
as
always
well.
obvious.
And press save.
And press save. Same as the bench boost. I've seen so many experienced managers, content creators, nearly swear, but they'll muck up their bench boost, and they'll muck up their triple captain.
I think everyone can guess which word you were going to use, mate.
Exactly. And their season is ruined as a result of that. So just be careful that you activate and save if you intend to play it. But definitely triple captain in Isak. And then the bench is a bit threadbare. Gabriel holding on till next week. Saka doubt to play. And Konza also probably in line for a rest as well, because he's probably Villa's most. He's Villa's Saliba, really, isn't he?
He is.
I guess.
I think that's solid, mate. And you're definitely not bench boosting, are you? Quick question from Steve. BB, if you have Saka in your team, would you bench boost with Saka if it's just Saka?
No, not this week. I think he's more likely to be. If he gets through the Madrid game, he's more likely to be almost captainable in the double game week. So I would think about pivoting or leaving it until later in the season.
Your optimized transfer this week, Rich, is to save. But what you can do, if you don't know, for anyone who doesn't use Fantasy Football Hub, I can't believe anyone watching this who doesn't use Fantasy Football Hub. If you set your bench boost to game week 32 or 33 or wherever it is, it'll give you transfers based on your chip strategy. So what I did for you, Rich, was why it flagged that up earlier. Is I just put your bench boost down to 32 just to see what it would say in terms of transfer.
What did it say then?
It said 3 transfers this week. You use all 3, and it said Saka.
I have 2.
And it said Saka to. Oh, it's recommending a hit then, because you're bench boosting obviously. Saka to Palmer. Gabriel to Saliba, and Konza to Colwell. So it's recommending a hit if you were bench boosting this week. Obviously, you want to optimize,
Optimize for the bench boost, yeah.
So that is those would have been your recommended transfers if bench boosting. So don't forget, if you are a hub member, you can go on, you can play with all your chip settings yourself, and it will give you recommendations based on your precise strategy that you want. Quick look at my team, not too dissimilar from your Rich. I've got a 98% game week rating this week. I didn't realise that.
Nice. That's that Palmer. It's that bloody Palmer.
It is bloody Palmer. I've got Pope in goal. I've got Munoz, Gvardiol, and Timber at the back. Whoop. We're up in there.
Yeah, you look good. Looks good on screen.
Oop. Oh, it's gone. It's gone for me. What's on there? Whoop. I don't know what's happened. Is it still working for you?
Well, I'm a few seconds behind, but
okay.
yeah,
I'm not sure.
You've gone on to recommended transfer.
It's not letting me go back for some reason, so apologies, YouTube. Apologies, YouTube watchers. I have no idea what's happened there, but I will continue to read out my team: Munoz, Gvardiol, Timber, Sam, Murphy, Salah, Palmer, Isak, Marteta, and Marmoush. At the moment, my bench is Raya, Rodgers, and Konza. Which I do expect some benched points there. Actually, I don't really want to bench Rodgers, but I can't. I don't think I can drop any of that front set. I almost want an injury, so it makes it awkward for others, and I can play Rodgers. But yeah, I'm quite happy.
Might happen. You don't know if anybody else emerges as a doubt, then you might want to do that. I mean, I think Rodgers will play. I mean, second guessing a rest like that, what could possibly go wrong, right? He's playing Southampton. It could be a third successive haul that I benched, I just think he might play him. And also, could come on for 30 minutes and score 10 points then, couldn't he? So, exactly. I think Saka and Rodgers, they're fine to start and they're fine to bench. I mean, it's not a big problem, really. So I think it's an easy roll. Yeah, you're just so you know, you're showing the press, like, and subscribe screen.
Yeah, I have no idea why. My recommended transfer this week was to save, and if I was bench boosting, it was Gabriel to Colwill. That was my recommended transfer this week. And then we move on to the saves. I've no idea why it's done that. Apologies to everyone watching on YouTube. Hopefully you get the gist. But I'll be saving this week. I'll be going to next week with, is that three free transfers, Rich? We'll both have ahead of
3
double game week 33, which will be nice.
I don't think it'll quite be enough given the Gabriel injury, and it won't be enough to be completely optimized because of the 3 Newcastle players.
You couldn't be optimized, but it's still, I still think it's far better than this week. Goodness me. And even Isa, you don't. Who are they away to next week?
Villa.
Yeah,
how many could score? And you've then got him for the running, right? You can either choose him to move him on, or have it. So it's not the end of the world if you keep Isak or you keep one of your Newcastle.
Or you could take a hit, right, to get out, because if there's a time to take a hit, as we've learned over the years, right, is to optimize for these chips. Exactly that. But anyway, that is it for us for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in the chat. Those who watch it back and those listening on the podcast versions, your support is very, very much appreciated. Rich, thank you so much as usual. Where can people get hold of you?
I'm on at Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter and Blue Sky.
And I am at FFH Fergie on those platforms as well. This podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. We'll be back next Thursday to look ahead to a bit more of an exciting double game week 33. Will be
special.
Best bench boost special, transfer splurge, spaffometer special. There will be everything going on next week. In the meantime, we hope you have a fantastic game week 32, and may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.